Hello, 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 everyone. How are you all doing today? Thanks so much for being here with us during this webinar on the latest on unemployment on this balmy Friday afternoon here. Thanks. I'm sorry if I have any internet connectivity issues. I'm being told that my connection is unstable. What a joy 2020 and 2021 are. I'm Casey Smith. I'm with Arts Alliance Illinois. Thanks for being here. For those of you who sent your questions ahead of time and are looking for a recording, congratulations, you're watching this on YouTube. Magic, yeah. So a couple little things about Zoom webinars. There's a chat function that you'll see you can use just to chat with other participants. You can also toggle that to be either to all the panelists and attendees or just to the panelists. And then there's also a Q&A box. So if you have specific questions you want our fabulous guests to answer from IDES, you can put those in the Q&A box. If you sent your questions ahead of time, Jonathan has them and is ready to go. The majority of this will be a Q&A, but to kick us off, Jonathan is going to give a quick policy update on where we are right now. So without further ado, the man, the legend, the Arts Alliance policy wonk, Jonathan Vandenberg. Take it away, Jonathan.
Wow. Thank you. I think we should just end the webinar now so that I can bask in that introduction and praise. So thank you very much. No, it's good to be here. Thank you for everyone who has joined us. Artists are the essential workers of the creative sector. Artists, creative practitioners are on the front lines, bringing culture, the arts, creativity to our worlds, to our families, to our communities. And this COVID crisis has been absolutely devastating on artists. And a lot of times businesses can get the attention or nonprofits can get the attention. And we forget about simply individual artists who are, like businesses and nonprofits, struggling during this crisis, a crisis that was initially thought it would go for 3 months. It hasn't. It's gone for well over a year. And so government has responded and needs to respond more with the support that artists need and that all unemployed people need during this difficult time. So we are extremely grateful for the work that the Illinois Department of Employment Security has done since COVID started to make unemployment insurance benefits available. They have a tough task ahead of them. They've had a tough task behind them, and they have dealt with, I believe, upwards of 4 million claims. I think that's probably even pretty low. But today they're taking time to join us to answer your questions about unemployment insurance, whether you have a question about the process, question about benefit amounts, a benefit time period, we're here. But as to get those questions answered. But before I introduce them, I'm going to give really briefly a little bit of context about where we are in terms of advocacy and policy and politics specific to unemployment. So I'm going to try to share my screen here and see if we can bring up my presentation. Just a couple of slides. Here we go. So hopefully you can see these. And it seems like when it comes to policy and politics in the time of COVID, something is always happening, and that's the way that it should be. Here's the perspective. Here's the bigger picture when we look at unemployment. And I bring these numbers up and this look at overall unemployment up to let you know that if you are unemployed right now, you are not alone. That is for sure. In just the period of April through July of 2020, the Illinois arts industry lost more than $5.3 billion and 104,000 jobs. And nationally, based on a recent survey, 59% of arts organizations have closed and 39% have no target reopening date. If we look at Illinois unemployment claims specifically in our sector, or we'll define it as the arts, entertainment, and recreation sector. And you look at December 2020 versus December 2019, unemployment insurance claims are up by 264%. And let's be honest, this burden of the COVID crisis has not been has not been carried equally by all. Some communities have suffered disproportionately because of COVID. And when we look at unemployment among BIPOC artists, it's 69%. And that's more than 10 points greater than unemployment for white artists, which is still incredibly high. And we have a long road ahead of us. There are some reports that show that the road to full recovery when it comes to arts nonprofits looks at like 25 months or so, and that's longer than other types of nonprofits. So all of this is to say that as we go through this process of trying to recover from COVID, you certainly aren't alone, and we're seeking to advocate for more federal support. And this here, a lot of acronyms, but this is what the federal support has looked like so far, including changes that were enacted with the December 27 COVID relief package. Many of these acronyms might be familiar to you, but there are basically four programs. The first is Pandemic Emergency Unemployment Compensation. That's what we refer to as traditional unemployment. And in December, the bill that was signed at that point extends that to March 14, 2021. So the federal government now is funding 11 more weeks of traditional unemployment extension for those who are having difficulty finding work. The second, PUA, stands for Pandemic Unemployment Assistance. That is specifically for gig workers, and artists are very well represented in the gig economy. It's part of what we do. Independent contractors, sole proprietors can fall into that sometimes too, but really looking at gig workers, and that coverage was extended through March 14 as well. Normally, gig workers are not covered by unemployment, but this program has made that possible. So there's federal funding for 11 more weeks. And then many of you are aware of the federal pandemic unemployment compensation program. And initially that added $600 extra per week to unemployment insurance payments. However, that lapsed. It was restarted again by the December legislation, is now at $300 a week, and that will go again to March 14, 2021. And so we're seeing how important it is to get action done before mid-March in order to further extend these benefits. And then finally, there's the mixed earner unemployment compensation. And that provides $100, in addition to the other benefits, $100 per week for mixed earners, those who earn W-2 employment, and I believe at least $5,000 in 1099 employment. That is seeking to address, it doesn't fully address, but seeking to address what I think is, you could fairly call it kind of a glitch in this overall approach. And that is, you could earn the same amount of, let's say you could earn $30,000 in W-2 wages. You could earn $30,000 in only 1099 wages or income. And in either of those cases, if you're earning fully one type or fully the other, your benefits would be based on that 30,000. However, it gets sticky when you begin to earn a mixture of those, which oftentimes leads you to get your benefits determined based on a lower amount. So this is an attempt to cover that. And then what we need to see, though, is this has to continue because the COVID crisis is not going to be done in mid-March, and support cannot be done either. We, as the Alliance, Arts Alliance Illinois, along with many of our partner organizations across the states, are advocating for this to continue. We join the president in his plan in wanting to see those top three, PEUC, PUA, and FPUC, extended even further through September 2021. And we would like to see the extension also of the MEUC, and really we need to look at a permanent fix. And we would also like to see that $300 a week, although it might be a difficult sell to get it back to 600, we do support the president's call to get it up to $400 a week. We need more, and we need it to go longer. This is a devastating crisis. We also know that all of this gets put on the shoulders of the state to implement, and we applaud and join the governor's call for additional funding for IDES, 60 million supplemental for this fiscal year, and 73 million for in addition for next fiscal year, so that IDES can have the resources to deal with the surging claims and can make the reforms necessary in order to process it all. So there are a lot of programs at play. There are a lot of programs that, because of the complexity of the crisis, have complexities within them. And so we are very, very glad, and I'll stop sharing my screen here. We are very glad to have experts from the Illinois Department of Employment Security with us today in order to address some of our questions. And so I'm going to introduce them now. And Eric, are you there?
I am. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Eric. Thanks for being here. I'm going to introduce, first of all, Eric Conjas. He is the statewide adjudication manager for IDES. So welcome, Eric. Thank you for spending your Friday afternoon with us.
Sure, not a problem. It's better than playing in the snow.
Well, we'll see. I don't know. Playing in the snow can be pretty fun sometimes, but we've had enough of it, so I agree. We also then have Justin Brissett, who's the UI director for IDES. And Justin, are you here?
Hi, Jonathan. I'm here. Good to be here. Thank you.
Yeah, good to be here. Thank you for taking your time. So we received a lot of questions in advance of this webinar, and so we're going to go through those. We're videotaping this too, so that we'll be able to make it available to future people who want to take a look. But let's start with those questions. And feel free, Eric or Justin, to jump in at any time. Either of you can go ahead and answer. But just quickly, some basic unemployment insurance benefit questions. First of all, are you eligible to receive unemployment insurance benefits if you're working part-time?
So I'll take this one. Yeah, actually, you are eligible. Claimants can work and collect benefits at the same time, as long as they're not earning more than the weekly benefit amount that's determined at the time the claim is filed. And as long as they're accurately reporting their gross income. Okay, so one can earn up to 50% of the weekly benefit amount without any reduction of the benefit. Any dollar amount over 50% is deducted dollar for dollar from the weekly benefit amount. Okay, if at any time you report wages over the weekly benefit amount, you would not be eligible for that week.
Okay, and then is unemployment insurance benefits just for people who've had a full-time job and then have completely lost that work, or could you have been working part-time and then go down to no employment and still be eligible for UI or unemployment insurance benefits?
Right, so unemployment is generally available to individuals who are unemployed through no fault of their own. There's a minimum wage requirement to qualify for regular unemployment, and that can be a mixture of part-time earnings or full-time earnings. Just so long as you meet that minimum earnings requirement of at least $1,600 during the base period over 2 quarters, and there's some nuances there, that information if you want us to go into that a little bit further later. But as long as you meet the monetary requirement, part-time or full-time doesn't really come into play.
So then, so we have one question I'm just going to pick up that's in the chat, but people can put their questions in Q&A too. An attendee asked that, wants to know if I have to quit my job because my teenager went from a high honor roll to struggling with remote learning. Are they eligible to apply for unemployment if they have to quit the job due to that reason?
So we generally don't give specific, every situation is going to be different.
Yeah.
If an individual needs to quit their job and file for unemployment, we would schedule a fact-finding interview to discuss all the nuances as to, you know, the reason why the individual decided to leave and make a determination, allow or deny whether benefits would be paid. Generally speaking, if an individual leaves work for a reason that is directly or indirectly related to the COVID-19 pandemic, then they're denied regular benefits, then they may be eligible for pandemic unemployment assistance.
Okay.
In that case.
So it's because there's a kind of a COVID connection there, but in this sense, what would be the best step for them to take to go ahead and file?
So if an individual does make the decision to leave work in that situation and is seeking unemployment benefits, you should always file your claim the first week that you're not going to be employed, either part-time or full-time, and then that sort of gets the ball rolling.
Okay. If how long do they have to apply after that time? Does it have to be within the first week, or is there some leeway in terms of when they can apply? The time between when they leave the job and when they actually submit an application?
We always encourage individuals to apply as soon as possible after leaving work. If you're going to apply, if you wait, just say X number of weeks, 6 weeks, 2 weeks, or whatever, then it's very difficult to get paid that intervening period if you're looking for it. So if you're going to file, we encourage individuals to file as soon as possible.
One question that we received, I think, from a couple people is, are you able to receive, say, an artist grant and unemployment at the same time? So that if you're on unemployment and you're an artist, but an opportunity does come where you can apply for and perhaps receive a grant, is that possible to get both?
So I suppose it depends on the type of grant. And I want to introduce a colleague who she's logged in, but she was having some difficulties. I think she's in now. America Evans is our statewide claims manager.
Hi, America.
Hello.
So if you hear me sounding like America, that's her.
I was just impressed because there's two of you and you sound different. I'm like, that's pretty amazing.
Yeah. Finally can be in two places at once.
There you go. There you go.
So go ahead, America.
Okay. So with regards to the grant, that's not really considered earnings. So this person, they're not working for this company or wherever it is that they receive this grant, correct? They don't work for them, right?
It's usually a grant. It might be from a foundation or from another source, but it's usually not considered an employment relationship.
Right. So that wouldn't be earnings. So that wouldn't affect their unemployment benefits.
Okay. So that question was kind of on the front end of things applying, but another theme that we had is if someone is on the other end, if their they've been on unemployment benefits, but those are beginning to expire. If they are on regular unemployment and it is set to run out, what are their next options? This person asked, can they apply for PUA? I'm guessing not, because they weren't eligible in the first place. But when they're hitting now, as they begin to hit the expiration of their regular UI benefits, what do they need to do in order to have them extended?
Once they exhaust their regular UI benefits, then they would go on to the PEUC program. Okay. The PEUC program ends March 13th. Well, right now, that's the end date for it. That could change. Yeah. But that should be an automatic process for them to go from regular benefits to PEUC. I hate to mention the extended benefits, but if the extended benefits is still available at the time that they exhaust the PEUC, which is the acronym for Pandemic Emergency Unemployment Compensation. So once they've exhausted that, then they will be eligible for extended benefits if those benefits, that program is still available at that time.
Okay. Is there anything that they need to do specifically? Do they need to file again, or how does that extension occur?
It occurs fluidly. Once they've
Okay.
exhausted their claim, then a PUC claim should automatically be established for them,
Okay.
and they will receive a notice of what we call a finding. I believe we still send findings for the PUC claims. Correct? Is Justin here?
I'm here. I was just responding to a question in the chat.
Yeah, I want to make sure I'm not misstating. We are sending the finding for the PUC claims, correct?
That's correct.
Okay.
Yeah. And like Justin's adapting, that's great. Feel free to talk in the chat, everyone, in order to provide information. That's good. There's been a couple people that we've heard from who actually had their benefits expire, their traditional UI benefits expire shortly before the last relief package was signed, which is on December 27. They received an expiration notice a few days just before that. It was kind of severed. Do they need to reapply? If there was actually a break before the extension, do they need to reapply, or will IDS contact them to start things up again?
Well, if they were receiving regular benefits and the benefits exhausted, the signing of the new law, that wouldn't have affected them. They should have still gone into the PUC.
Okay.
Yeah.
And again, that should be automatic.
That should be automatic. If they have a current benefit year,
Mm-hmm.
so their benefit year has not exhausted, has not ended, they received their 26 weeks of benefits, then the next process is to automatically go onto the PUC program.
Okay.
And you're saying that that did not happen?
Yes. Yeah. That did not happen. Kind of it was severed, so to speak. And I think they're wondering if they need to go back and file again, or if they'll be picked up again, so to speak.
So America, and I think we should maybe take a moment and make a distinction between sort of like the pathway that different folks may have taken. So for those individuals who their benefit expired, but they continued to certify for payment of benefits, we augmented their balance, put them on the extension claim, and they began receiving those back weeks, and they presumably continued to certify and receive payment, versus those individuals who, when their benefit expired, they may have stopped certifying for payment of benefits. And even though we have augmented their extension balance for the additional 11 weeks, because they stopped certifying, it would not automatically pay out any additional weeks. However, we have been going about sending notification to those individuals who stopped certifying to let them know that they can get back into the system, either effective now, or they can request backdating to some period that they may have missed.
Okay, so
Can I just
go ahead? Yeah.
So are you referring to the claimants, Jonathan, the claimants who they exhausted regular and they never went on to PUC?
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
Because that wouldn't, what you're referring to, Justin, you're talking about the claimants who were receiving PUC and exhausted, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. So for those other individuals, they should have automatically gone onto the PUC program. That's the natural progression.
Right.
Yeah, because in essence, it kind of reminds me a little bit of like stepping stones. You know, where you have your traditional UI and you've been on it, and then that stepping stone's only going to take you so far. And if you haven't received employment yet, is the next stepping stone or the next kind of extension would be the pandemic emergency unemployment compensation that we've talked about, right? And that's federally funded. That's kind of the next kind of stepping stone.
Yes.
And then that stepping stone, could only take us to December 27 of last year and couldn't go any further. And so the next stepping stone has kind of been set, right? That December 27 put the next stepping stone. That stepping stone will take you to March 14 is basically the kind of the way to think of it.
Right.
And I think what I'm hearing, and I think this is really helpful to kind of talk through it, because it's, for a lot of people out there, it's a confusing system, particularly if they haven't been on unemployment before. But as I understand it, to summarize, that stepping from one to the next, that's kind of automatic.
Right.
That's automatic. So in that case, should applicants continue to certify then if they have any doubt? Was that what you would encourage them to do, to keep certifying?
I would encourage them to keep certifying. It also might be necessary. I'm kind of concerned about what type of answer to give you, because with these claimants, they should not miss any weeks. So if their benefits stop as weekend of December 26th, then they should have gone on to the PUC as of December 27th. And you're saying that did not happen for these individuals. So, I mean, my suggestion would be for, yes, them to continue to certify, but they may need to reopen their claim to establish a PUC claim.
Okay.
It's just hard to say when I don't know specifically.
Yeah. So we're kind of threading the needle without getting into individual names and things like that, but still trying to provide helpful information.
If I may,
Yeah.
Jonathan. So I think the part that I think you touched on it a moment ago, that the progression of these programs, it can be daunting even for us on our side.
Yeah.
Certainly so for claimants, and claimants may not fully be aware of which program they're on and when the eligibility ceases, or whether they are exhausted or things like that. If they have questions like that, or are having specific problems, then certainly this venue isn't going to fix the problem for them. I would suggest that they reach out to us at our Claimant Services Center to figure out where they are and what their next steps should be.
If they're having trouble getting through, I know that you guys are being swamped with claims. If they're having trouble getting through, how long should they expect to need to wait until they receive a reply before they should start to get concerned?
This is Justin. I guess I can't really respond to the second part of the question, because I think the concern is already there. But calling the call center is the option. And that number is 800-244-5631. There's a number of different options to select from, menu options, depending on what the nature of the question or the concern is. But depending on the nature of the question, then it's going to determine how long that callback is going to be. And it shifts from day to day and week to week depending on the volume. But I would say a typical callback can take up to 2 weeks, sometimes 3 weeks.
Okay. And when that callback occurs, this kind of gets into some of the process questions we've received. If the callback occurs and the person perhaps is not able to pick up the call or misses it, will there be another try, or do they need to call back again?
So the way the system is set up right now is that if there's no response, then the system will attempt another 2 times throughout the day.
Okay, great. couple other questions that we received in advance, and I'm just going to read them directly. I have not worked or received unemployment in over 2 years. Am I still able to apply as a gig worker for PUA? Or I guess that would be apply for traditional unemployment, right? And then PUA if denied.
So on this question, just we need clarification. So this person has been working as a gig employment, working in gig employment, and
Yes.
now they want to, okay. So yeah, the PUA is really specifically designed for people in that situation, gig employees and self-employed individuals, as well, of course, as individuals who are ineligible for regular benefits based on the regular benefits law, the laws that we have to follow with that. So yeah, in this case, if they're unemployed or underemployed because of COVID, then they would be eligible to receive PUA benefits.
And I think what's also important to remember, and correct me if I'm wrong too, is that they have to apply for regular UI, right? And so I think sometimes people get confused about that a little bit too.
We have to see that they have to apply for regular benefits first. And if they're ineligible for regular benefits, if they haven't made enough monies to be eligible for regular benefits, as in this situation, once they've applied and their claim has been processed, then they'll be able to file for the PUA benefits.
Okay, great. Is it possible to receive back pay or retroactive benefits from PUA from 2020 if the applicant was not able to apply in 2020? So if they had difficulty applying or were not able to apply, can PUA be made backwards or retroactively?
The furthest back that, based on this current act, the furthest back that we can backdate their claim for is December 6th.
December 6th.
Backdate it further than that.
Okay. I'm going to actually read what this person submitted because I think it is pretty illustrative of the situation that many kind of unemployed artists are in. I'm a self-employed photographer for 40 years. The majority of my income is from photography. 2 years ago, I got a substitute teaching license to supplement my income if needed. Am I eligible for PUA if I worked as a substitute teacher in a school district in 2019 or 2020, receiving a W-2 in both years for less than $1,200?
Go ahead, America.
I was going to say, if they have not earned enough income to be eligible for unemployment benefits, regular unemployment benefits, based on the requirement that Eric has stated earlier.
Yep.
And they're unemployed due to COVID, then they could apply for PUA. They could possibly be eligible for PUA in that case.
So essentially the substitute teacher income that they received in 2019 or 2019, especially since it was so low, is not going to disqualify them from getting you up. Yeah. It's going to
if they only earn $1,200 during the entire year, they're not going to be monetary eligible for regular unemployment benefits.
Okay.
But like we stated before, they would still have to apply for regular benefits. If they're found ineligible for regular, then they can file for PUA. And if they will qualify based on the reason for their unemployment, if it's due to COVID-19, unemployment, underemployment.
Another situation that I think is probably also very common. This person writes that both my venues for independently contracted art services, one was facilitating a large art projects for K-8 schools, and the second was serving as an art director for a special needs day program. Both of those venues, both of those lines of work might be permanently shut down, but that person won't know probably until the fall later this year. They're signed up for PUA now, but of course they want to know how long that will extend, and we don't know. It depends on Congress. But they're wondering, this is their first time on unemployment. They've received benefits in 2020, kind of based on 2019. Now that we're into a new calendar year, do they have to submit new information in order to receive in order to continue receiving benefits in 2021.
2021.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not sure if I'm not really sure where they're going with this question, but there is a new requirement. If you're receiving benefits December 27th and thereafter, then there is that new requirement to provide employment evidence.
Yeah, can you explain? I think I'm glad you brought that. I'm sorry, glad you brought that. Could you explain what that new requirement is and to whom it applies?
Well, it applies to anyone who's receiving PUA benefits after December 26th. So as December 27th and thereafter, if you're receiving PUA benefits, you're required to provide employment evidence. So if you've already provided your tax information, and which we use to determine if you are eligible for a increased WBA, weekly benefit amount, then that will suffice as employment evidence. You can use that as employment evidence.
Okay.
So there are different documents that can be used.
Okay.
But I believe that the tax documents will probably be the main document that individuals may use to meet that requirement. But we do have a list.
Okay. If those documents were submitted earlier, say for the 20 showing the 2019 tax year, and a new tax year comes around, do they have to resubmit it, say 2020?
No, you're asking if we need to see their 2020 tax documents? No.
No, okay, that's good. So switching gears a little bit, I mentioned the mixed earner unemployment compensation. That's, again, another system that needs to be set up. And I know each state is taking that on. When can mixed earners expect that $100? When do you think the system might be a go for launch, so to speak?
Jonathan, this is Justin. First of all, I want to take a moment to say thank you for your introduction, and thanks for taking the time to research and understand these various programs and to express them to the members here and folks attending and who might listen in later. MEUC is, I believe it's the 6th federal program that we're standing up within a year's time. And so we are looking for opportunities to streamline the MEUC process. We're looking at the possibility of teaming up with other states since I believe most other states have signed on to administer this program. And that coordination with other states may or may not happen, but in the meantime, we are working on defining the program and system requirements. MEUC is at the end of the day a $100 supplement for non-PUA programs, right? And you touched on that in the beginning. However, according to the new federal legislation, it does require an application and a self-certification to be completed. And so that's where there's a technological component in order to actually fit this into the existing databases. So I don't have a specific timeline for you at this very moment. You did mention already the currently scheduled program end date. The likelihood is that for those individuals who are allowed on the MEUC program, we'd be issuing lump sum payments.
Okay.
So according to the federal legislation, and I know you did go over this, but just to sort of touch on it again, the applicant would need to show proof of having earned at least, excuse me, $5,000 in self-employment in order to receive the additional supplement for the duration of the program. And so we'll be looking at those applications and those proof of self-employment on an individual by individual basis. And then as with basically every other component of these unemployment insurance programs, any applicants who end up being denied can file an appeal.
Okay.
But again, for those who will be allowed, we're looking at lump sum payments.
Okay. Well, we've certainly, of course, encourage and appreciate IDS's work to get that online as soon as possible, knowing everything else on your plate. Given $100 can make a big difference. It is one reason why at the Alliance, we want to make sure too that IDES and these systems are fully funded. And of course, I mentioned the governor's proposal and request at the start so that the funds can be invested into the system so that it can respond to the surge, many of which are artists. This is such an important issue. So I appreciate, we appreciate your work on that and your explanation of it. Certainly. We had a question about Illinois Job Link. This is, the question is this: can you explain the connection between IDES and Illinois Job Link? Person just wrote, I don't fully understand if they were supposed to take action immediately or if I should wait for further instructions. So maybe you can explain what Illinois Job Link is and how it fits into the system.
Yes, this is Justin again. So Illinois Job Link, sometimes referred to as IJL, that's the state's job bank. So historically, unemployment insurance claimants are required to register with Illinois Job Link in order to actually qualify for benefit payment. However, due to COVID, that requirement has been temporarily waived. However, employers are hiring, and there are tens of thousands of jobs that are real jobs that are posted by employers actively seeking employees that are in IJL right now.
One question from an attendee: can I update earnings on a PUA claim from 2020? I received earnings on a W-2 from being an election judge in 2020 when I thought it was going to be 1099 income.
So there was a time when the claimants were able to update their earnings that they reported in PUA, but they cannot do that right now. So they would have to contact claimant services to report that information, and they would do the update.
Okay. Another question: I lost my part-time job and got denied unemployment benefits. I'm currently appealing. I am also an artist and will be filing taxes as an independent contractor this year for the first time. Am I eligible for PUA benefits as I'm not able to work as an artist at this time? All right.
I guess the main thing is, so there are two components here. So they had regular employment that they lost. They lost that employment.
Yep.
And at that time, I guess the question would be, were they working in self-employment at the time that their self-employment became affected due to COVID? Were they actually working in self-employment?
Okay.
Was their self-employment affected by the pandemic? I guess that's what the question is.
Okay, and that's something only they can answer, sounds like.
Right. Because if they last worked, let's say they last worked in that part-time job, they hadn't been working in self-employment, and the last work that they had was with a W-2 employer, and they were denied benefits, regular benefits, based on their employment with that employer. If their separation was not due to COVID because of that employment, then they would not be eligible for a PUA. But if they were denied based on their regular employer, and then they later were working in self-employment, and their self-employment became affected because of COVID, then they may be eligible for PUA.
Okay.
I know it's a lot of moving parts there.
I feel like this is such an important issue, and there are so many individual variants. I sometimes wish I could just pause time and sit everyone down with each of you. It's a complicated system, and so we appreciate these explanations. Another question: we have had people receiving benefits and then we issued. I'm not sure the exact specifics of this, but right. So we have had people receiving benefits, and then we issued advance payments for work that they have not performed, kind of like an advance. Are these wages reportable, although they may not have worked? Because of this payment, their IDS payments have stopped.
So we were directed by the Department of Labor, since the beginning of the pandemic, employers have made various concessions to their employees to sort of keep them moving forward, right? And maintain the employer relationship, including some of these payments that were not directly related to prior services performed. However, because it's the employer-employee relationship, we have to treat those as wages paid to the individual, regardless of when that specific service would be performed. I suppose we would look at each individual circumstance and perhaps make a specific determination, but generally speaking, those wages would be disqualifying income and should be reported.
We got just a little bit last time, but one of the questions was, can artists receive let me make sure I get it right. Can artists on unemployment receive a one-time grant for their work without being kicked off benefits? I think we addressed that earlier, but that's such a common situation. Let's ask it again. So you receive a one-time grant, not part of an employment. Is that possible for them to receive without being kicked off of benefits?
Right, so that goes with the response on the initial question regarding the grant. It's the same thing.
Okay.
That's not an employee-employer relationship. They're not working for that employer. It's not considered earnings. So it would not affect their unemployment benefits.
Okay. I do want to mention one thing that does happen within the arts sector, particularly the actors, and that is the issue of residuals, where an actor might perform a commercial or a piece perhaps a year or 2 years ago, and however continues to receive some payments, oftentimes small. We did talk with IDS, and IDS was very helpful in kind of clarifying that situation, but correct me if I'm wrong. And the answer that we received is that residual income is not reportable during the certification week that it receives. It's counted as being earned back when the commercial was filmed, for example.
That would be correct. So residuals are reportable for the week in which the services were performed.
Okay. It's a common situation with that we see. So that's good to know too, that does not have to be included in the certification if it was performed a long time ago or so. We're going to try to get through a couple more. Do you have a couple more minutes?
I'm good for now. I don't presume to speak for my colleagues.
Okay. We're gonna maximize our time and get in as many as we can. So I appreciate it. But let's see if we can get one more in at least. And then if we can follow up with the Alliance will follow up with some resources. let's see. I've been receiving benefit expiration notices for several weeks, despite continuing to certify. Looking at my weeks paid, it shows 32 weeks paid and then the amount. Does that mean I've exhausted PUC 2?
So, so regular benefits is 26 weeks.
Okay.
And then initially the PUC was for 13 weeks. So that's 39 weeks.
Yep.
And you're saying that they stated they received only 37?
32.
32 weeks.
Yep.
And they're continuing to certify
Yes.
and not being paid?
Yep. They got an expiration notice.
What is, do you know what an expiration notice is?
No,
What
it
do you mean by
sounds like we have the person's name, so we'll try to get more details on it.
Okay, so okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, so but you said they were the last program they were on was the PEUC.
Yep. Yes. Yeah. Well, I am going to be cognizant of time too, because I'm sure that all the work that you do, you've more than earned your weekend, I'm sure, with all the claims that you're filing. For those of you, if we've not been able to get to your question, we've had many questions and tried to get to as many as possible. If we haven't been able to get it, we'll follow up with you to provide resources that hopefully can help. I'm going to end with just two quick things, and then I'm going to turn it back over to Casey. The first is just to say thank you, America and Eric and Justin, not only for taking the time today to be here, but for the work that you do week in and week out during this really pressing time. So first of all, thank you. And I'm also going to put, or I guess we can probably send it out to people, but my contact information, the Alliance's contact information, and some other resources that we have. If you are an artist and you are unemployed and you are struggling to make it through this situation, please know that we are fighting for you, that we value the work that you're doing. We will continue to advocate at the federal level and other levels to have these supports continue, because you are valuable to us and you're valuable to our society, and we want to support you. So Casey, I'm going to hand it back over to you. Is there anything else that we need to wrap up?
Thanks. Well, yeah, that was great. And thank you, repeating that, thank you so much to Eric, America, and Justin. We really appreciate you being here with us. I know this is really, really difficult work for you as well. And everyone who's here or watching this, we know that obviously this is extraordinarily complicated and frustrating and just a really, really awful situation that we all find ourselves in. So thank you so much for sticking with it. And, we can both hold our government accountable and have empathy for the people that are behind the scenes trying to make it work in a really, really difficult situation. So we are going to be sending out this recording to you all. As Jonathan said, if your question didn't get answered, we're going to take it all down. We're going to get those answers in writing, and we will be sharing those on our website. And we'll also be sending an email to everyone who registered for this webinar with those responses. So even if your question didn't get answered in this video, we have not forgotten you, and we will be following up. Thank you for being with us on a Friday afternoon. Please, I hope that you can go and do whatever restorative thing works for you. Have a tea, watch the sunset. And if you have any questions, you can reach out to Jonathan or me. Again, I'm Casey. Sorry, I'm named Arts Alliance Illinois. That's just rude. But happy Friday. We're with you, and we'll be seeing you soon.